Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Sketching Encounters. And this is for my members. This is the second episode of the Cast Files, and I have a special affiliation with this particular report because, as some of you know, I used to do research in Kentucky at a location that was a habituation where the family that was living there before had been feeding them for like 25 plus years. And then the Erickson Project moved it into that area. There was a Princeton biologist, Layla Hychek, was put in there, lived there at that location, and Dennis Full was also there. So that research lasted 5 years, and then the house sat empty for 2 years. And then the team that I was on bought the house, and then I moved there in 2012 and lived there. This report was filed in May of 2013. May 3rd, actually, is when it was filed. Whenever this report came in, we grabbed it because we didn't want anybody else to pick up on it. And we were at that time still trying to keep it on the down low that I was living there and that research was going on there. We were trying to keep it really quiet because there are elements in the Bigfoot community, the research community, that do things to undermine other, I know it's sad, but they will do things to undermine your research. And so we were just really keeping it on the down low. Like literally only my family knew exactly where I was. Like we weren't telling that many people. We were keeping it really, really quiet. So when this report came in, I asked Ronnie if she would take it and kind of hide it. And so she did. And so that's why this is a cached file, because I was living literally 2 miles as the crow flies from where this report happened. It's such a cool report. And this young man had really the experience of a lifetime. And I remember when I got to meet him and talk to him, I was like, you have no idea how many people would love to have been in your shoes that day whenever when you saw this. So I'm going to read the report to you, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about it. And then I actually recorded our conversation, so I'll share little snippets of the things that he said, sitting on my front porch, and talking about his experience. So the nearest town is Crittenden, and that's the little town I was living in. So he was walking on his grandfather's 300 plus acre farm along the creek when I heard a lot of splashing up ahead. So I started creeping to see what could be doing that splashing, and it was so loud. And one of the reasons he was so alarmed is because nobody is allowed on his grandfather's property. In fact, this young man would have to get permission to be on it himself. Like this farmer kept everyone off. So this is what he saw. So there was an adult one and a younger one that stood to hip length of the adult. They were 30 to 40 yards away from me. I knelt down behind this berm and I watched them for 20 or 30 minutes. 20 or 30 minutes. Now, this poor guy, he had no cell phone on him. He had nothing on him. Like he literally just his parents' home was on the top of a hill, because that's where the homes are in that area of Kentucky. All the homes are up on the top of the hills, and then they slope down into the creeks. So he literally just walked out the back door and then just started creaking, and he was looking for lizards and stuff. So the splashing that he heard up ahead of him, it was really alarming because that told him somebody was on his grandfather's property that wasn't supposed to be there. And so that's why he snuck up on him. In this time, I witnessed the smaller one playing in the creek, stacking rocks, laying on its belly, and playing in the water, while the larger one was watching the younger one as a human parent would watch their child. And he emphasized that. The larger one sat down on its bottom, arms resting on its knees, just like we would, as if relaxing and enjoying watching it. It did not take its eyes off of the younger one, and if it did, it was only to scout the trees and look around. As I tried to get closer, now the reason he tried to get closer is because they started moving a little bit further away from him down the creek bed. So he, of course, wanted to follow them, and that's when he got busted. He says, as I tried to get closer, there was a 20-foot bank plus barbed wire fence between us. The large one looked in my direction and put one finger up in the air and then let out three loud bellows. And then the tops of the trees started shaking violently, like on the bank across from him. And the baby shot towards the bank and out of view. And the big one took off down the creek, and I was able to see large amounts of water being splashed as he ran. As I was coming up the other side of the hill, I felt as if I was being stalked and continued to witness the treetops shaking. He also noted the large one looked to be about 8 feet tall, and the smaller looked to be about 4 to 5 feet tall. They were covered in long, dark hair, even on their faces, except for around their eyes. He also noticed they seemed to be very unaggressive, and the larger one seemed to be very affectionate towards the younger one, even placing its hand on top of its head at one point. Also, he found mussels broken apart shortly before the sighting. So, and this happened at 4:30 in the afternoon on a really bright sunny day. Um, in the bottom part of the report, he said that he had heard many stories growing up that had been passed from generation to generation, including stories his mother had told him regarding her father seeing one when she was younger. So this is heavily wooded farmland. So that is the report that he filed. So the really, really cool and crazy thing is I picked up the report, and so, of course, there was a number, and I tried to call it, and I tried to call it. I left messages and I left messages, and he just wasn't getting back with me. And I was so disappointed because I really, really wanted to talk to this young man. I mean, oh my gosh, I wanted to do his sketches like so bad. Anyway, so a couple of weeks passed, and I still hadn't heard from him. And then Ronnie came to visit me. And so we got in my truck and we wanted to go over. I just wanted to show her where this road was. And so we were, and these little roads in Kentucky are literally just a one vehicle at a time road. And whenever you meet somebody, one of you has to pull over or you're gonna clash. Well, anyway, so Ronnie and I were on the top of this hill. I think it was a Sunday, and she was going to be going home after that. And so we were on this road, and there's a truck coming. And so I get off the side, and he gets off the side, but he doesn't get off nearly enough. And he had those really long extended mirrors. And our mirrors hit each other and shattered my mirror. I don't know if it did his, but so of course I stopped and he stopped and he got out and he was apologetic and I'm apologizing. And uh, we just start visiting with him and asking him questions and, ask him if he was from that area because we were trying to find somebody. And he said, no, that he wasn't, but his wife was. And so I told him that this young man had filed a report and what his name was. And so his wife was sitting in the truck, and he went to her, and she did know this person's, I think she went to school with this person's older sister. So I said, well, would you please just get a message to him and let him know that I'd really like to talk to him about the report he filed. So then we said our goodbyes, and then Ronnie went home. And then not much longer after Ronnie left, my phone rang, and it was this young man, and he was very apologetic. Um, that I had to have my mirror broken before he would reach out, and he felt bad about that. And I said he was just afraid that someone was going to show up at his doorstep, with cameras and give him a lot of publicity, and that's not what he wanted. He's a very private, person. And he was a single parent and with, two children. And he just didn't want the publicity, so he was afraid to talk to me. But anyway, so I invited him to the house, and so he came over a little bit later, and we sat and talked. And so you're going to hear some of that recording. Wow, what an experience you had.
Yeah, it was wild. I couldn't even hardly spit it out to tell mom. I felt like I saw a unicorn or something.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Like overwhelming. But
Were you scared? I mean, when it...
not really. I was still a pretty good distance away, and I was kind of hiding. There's like a barbed wire fence, and then probably like a 15-foot bank on the creek bed. So I
Yeah.
mean, I was. But when I was leaving, like headed back towards the house, because I didn't even really know where I was in relevance to the house. It's 336 acres.
Yeah.
So I just started up the hill, and I actually came out on. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean, he owns all the way up. I don't. You obviously don't know the area, but he owns up over. He owns a lot of land up there. So.
Okay.
But well, I guess you just read the thing on there.
Right, and I kind of looked on Google, you know, so I kind of, in fact, I'll pull up the map in just a second. You can maybe kind of show me a little bit about where you were. But
All right.
so when you first saw these things, and so you I guess it was the splashing in the creek that made you
Yeah, I
kind of
heard
start
the
to
splashing
investigate.
well before I came around to where I could see him. Like it was just loud. Like it was a lot of splashing. You know, what I mean, for something in the creek like that, because I was down there when I was a kid and stuff, and it's always real quiet.
And you hadn't encountered anybody. I mean, you were just down there by yourself.
Yeah, I was just down there walking around and I walked straight back behind my mom's house and just walked the creek, and I was probably gone like 5 hours.
Wow.
That's when I came in, and Mom's like, "Well, you made it back alive. We was worried about you." Like, I'm just walking around. I told her what happened and everything, and my sister got online. She's like, "I think there's somewhere you can report that or something like that." But they seemed like, I don't know. They seemed like they weren't interested in me at all. You know, and as soon as they did think something was there, or whatever, it's like they were gone. Like they didn't want anything to do with me. But then when I was coming up the hill, I felt like the trees were shaking and stuff over, because I ended up in like a field, and then there's a line of trees, and then I mean I could just hear a lot of noise over there, and then I don't know what it was. You know
What
I
kind of
mean?
noise did you hear?
It was just like the trees rustling, and I mean, if I stopped a couple times and just tried to listen.
Yeah.
Just because I was kind of scared, like shit, something's following me up the hill. You know?
Right,
I
right.
was scared. I didn't know, but they seem like they pretty much just I don't know that you could see the care towards the little one. You know, I mean, you could really like looking at it, you could see the compassion. You know, and you could tell that.
Did you think the adult was a male or a female? Could you tell?
I had no idea. It was just a lot of hair. I mean, there was a lot of hair. Well, I mean, you could tell it was keeping a close eye, you know what I mean? It was looking around, and as soon as it saw me, it was like they had a signal or something, you know what I mean? It was just like, they
Well, you
were
mentioned
gone.
that it raised a finger. How
Yeah,
did
it raised its arm up and just raised the finger and just loud, three real loud noises, like a bellows, you know what I mean? It was deep, it was loud. And then the trees up the hill on the other side of the creek, and I don't know how many, because I mean, they're good-sized trees.
Right.
But they were shaking violently, you know what I mean? Like, well, I mean, it was shaking violently.
And when you say bellows, what can you do? Kind of a...
Oh, I don't think I could do it. It was just loud, you know. It was just like, you know.
Like a roar,
Yeah, but
sort of?
it was loud. Like it was a lot louder than. I don't know. It was loud for as far away. I mean, I was probably, I'd say probably 30, 40 yards away.
Yeah,
you know.
like say from here to those horses down there, or more so.
I'd say probably from here, like closer to the garage or the fence or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was kind of where I was. It was kind of in a spot like I could see them a lot longer than they would have been able to see me. You know,
Right.
I mean, just how it was. But it almost looked like the little one, and I say it's little, but it was still pretty big. You know what I mean? I don't.
Well, if you had to guess their weight, what would you
Weight?
say? Yeah, I mean, if you had to guess a weight.
Oh, I'd say well over 300. Probably
For
closer.
the adult?
For the adult, probably closer to 400 pounds. I'd say.
And how about the little one?
I really don't know. I know in relevance
Well,
of
I'm
height.
like 5 feet.
Yeah. In relevance, the height, I would say the smaller one was probably closer to like 4 to 5 feet.
And how
Something
much
like
would
that.
you think it would weigh?
I mean, I'd still say probably at least a couple hundred.
100 pounds,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd say a couple hundred probably. But like you could see the, I don't know, just like looking at them, you could tell that there was a lot of care for the young one. And even when they did run, the little one shot towards the bank when the trees started shaking, like up towards the shaking trees, and the big one stayed in the creek and kept running down the creek. And I didn't really think about it, but I was talking to Mom about it later. I said it was almost like it wanted me to keep its eye on it so that, you know, like it was protecting it or something. And I don't know if that's
Like
really...
a diversion.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's what was really going on, but I couldn't take my eye off it running through the creek to see where the little one went, you know what I mean?
Wow.
But,
Did you,
It's just,
you know, the splashing that you originally heard, did you see it like after, after the point where you kind of went over to look at what it was?
yeah.
Did you see what it was doing that would be making that kind of original splashing that you heard?
That's what Mom asked me the same thing. I told her, I said, it looked like to me like they were like it was letting the little one play in the water. Like
Just like splashing around
yeah,
in the water.
like at one point it was laying on its stomach in the creek and it was stacking rocks. And I mean, I watched it for probably 30 or 40 minutes, and I mean, I was like afraid my heart was beating too loud. I was like, they're gonna hear this. I was just like,
God, what were you thinking? I mean, I just can't even imagine.
well, that's what I told Mom. I told her about it. When I got there, I was like, Mom, come outside for a second. My sister was there. My brother's ex-wife was there. And I told her, I said, I don't want to tell people because I don't want to think I'm crazy, you know what I mean? And the big thing is Dad, who owns the farm, he's real strange. Like, he don't let people hunt out there or anything, you know what I mean? So the land's pretty much not traveled at all. Like, I mean, he's let a few people over the years come out and hunt, but he don't let people put up deer stands like your typical hunters around here. I mean, I got tree stands on 3 different farms, you know what I mean? But
right.
it's not really like that out there. It's just kind of
Pristine, really.
yeah, it's his space, and he don't like people on it. You know, I'm not even so sure he likes me back there. I tell you the truth, he's kind of a grumpy old man. So, but
Wow. Well, so what was your first thought whenever you?
well, at first I was a little bit scared, and then I realized that I got a good bank and stuff here, and I don't know how the hell they probably would have outran me. I ain't fast, and I smoke a pack of smokes a day. Would have caught me for sure. But I don't know, I was kind of scared, and then the scared feeling kind of went away, and I was more mesmerized. Like, I didn't even know what to think. I was like, I cannot believe I'm sitting, you know, I mean, I can't believe I'm sitting here seeing this.
Did you know what they were? I mean, did you? You're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
this has
I
to be
mean,
the Bigfoot.
yeah,
that-
because, I mean, I've lived here for, you know, I've lived here 20 years, and I've never seen anything that big. Like, I've never seen anything in the wild that big before.
And when you
like,
say big,
it was just big. I mean, its chest, from chest to back, looked like it was that thick, you know. I mean, it looked big, like, and hairy. Like I said, that's what I was telling him, like, the hair, like, it was under his eyes, and you could see the hair coming down and hanging off his face. It was so long, like, it was long hair, like, yeah.
would you say that these things that you saw, were they more human looking in the face, or were they more apish looking?
There's just so much hair, it's really hard to tell, but I mean, it didn't have your typical, like, what an ape looks like. It wasn't typically like, it wasn't like an ape face. It didn't seem to be too bulged here. It looked to be more like ours would be. You know, I'm talking about the ape, how they got the kind of their
Pronapism,
yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because of the hair, and they were wet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it didn't seem to stick out like.
the pronapism.
Yeah, I mean, it did a little bit, but not near as much as like if you saw a gorilla at the zoo. It wasn't like that at
Right.
all. Like,
How about the brow ridge? Did it have a very distinct brow ridge?
I couldn't really tell. It was just the hair. I mean,
Was the hair coming down like my bangs
No, it
are, or was
wasn't.
it going back?
it was going back. It wasn't like hanging in his face, but you could see where it was like coming down beside its eyes, and I mean, it looked like it was growing straight out from under its eyes,
Wow.
just straight down.
And the skin right here, what color?
It's dark. It's really hard to tell.
Like
I mean,
a Hispanic person, or
Yeah.
darker, like a black?
oh
man?
yeah, I would say closer to that. But even when I was talking to Mom and them about it, I told them, I said it was really hard to tell because she was asking what color, if they were brown or black. I said, well, they were wet, so it looked dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the dry, it might be more brown, but it looked jet black, but it was soaking wet. You know?
And were they the same color? The little one and the other
The
one?
little one seemed to be a little bit lighter, color.
And the hair length, was it? If you had to guess, like the length hanging off of the arms and stuff, what would you say?
I mean, if it was holding its arm straight down, the hair was covering most of its fingers and stuff. I mean, it was long down. I mean, I'd say probably at least that far.
Like 6 inches?
Yeah, I'd say at least.
And that was like all over? Did some of the hair appear shorter than
Yeah,
some
I mean,
places?
a little bit, but
Long
like
on
I
that
said,
one.
just closer to its hands, they were a little shorter, but you could see that it was long enough that it was coming down, you know what I mean?
It was coming
just
down.
covering it, but like I said, being wet, it was really hard to tell anything.
And was the big one wet also?
I mean, it wasn't, at one point it did sit down, you know what I mean? So it was wet
On the
probably
waist
up
up?
to here, yeah, because, I mean, the water probably came up to the big one, probably close to its hip, so I mean, it was I mean, it's a deep section of the creek. You
Like
know,
4 feet deep or so?
Yeah, probably. Like I said, it came up pretty far on the little one, but when you go around the bend a little bit, it splits off, and there's like some land there, and then the creek goes both ways, and it shallows out. And I mean, they were walking back and forth, and like I said, the little one had a stack of rocks this time. I'm sure the stack of rocks is probably still there. You know, it was just stacking rocks and splashing around. Like it was having a great time.
Wow.
It felt like it was me at the pool with my kids. You know, I mean, that's what.
You have kids?
Oh yeah, I got a 4 and 5-year-old.
Wow.
But that's what it felt like to me. It was like the compassion I could see from the big one to the baby, or the little. I shouldn't call it a baby because I don't really know. But
it was about half the size?
probably
you say half
probably a little under that. Like I said, it's really hard to make. You know what I mean? It's,
How about the shape of the head? Was the head kind of roundish like ours, or could you tell much about the
It was
shape?
roundish, but it seemed like it's like where our forehead would be, like it stuck out a little bit more on the actual forehead. You know what I mean? Like that's why I said it's hard to tell. Like when I say it didn't have a gorilla face, it might have seemed that way because the forehead seemed so large.
So the forehead was real prominent.
Yeah, it seemed really large. I mean, compared to your typical people you would see, or like I say, even comparing it to a gorilla, if that's what we're gonna do. You know?
How about the top back here? Was it round or was it more pointy?
It was it was round. Like I said, that's another thing. It's hard to tell with the hair. You know, I mean, there was so much hair. It's really even hard to tell as far as thickness how much hair that was even there until you got to the head. I mean,
Wow.
it was covered in hair. But I mean, it seemed round. But like I said, again, that could be the hair.
Yeah.
Laying how it was, I don't, you know, I mean, I really don't know.
And the little one, when it was saying, you said it was laying like on its belly. Was it on the bank when it was laying on its belly?
Yeah, it was close to the bank, just where it shallowed up some. Like there's some.
So, I mean, it
rocks.
wasn't like swimming like.
No, it was just laying on there, like just splashing around. It tossed up a couple rocks and stuff. I mean, it looked like they took it to the creek to play. Like it blew my mind. I couldn't, like I said earlier, I'm down here in the woods. I don't have a phone or anything, you know, because like I said, I probably watched them 30, 40 minutes. I don't have a phone. I didn't even know how long I was gone. Like I come back in the house and Mom's like, "You've been gone 4 hours." My legs, I'm still scratched up. I was all bleeding and everything. I was just trying to get out of there. But like I said, coming up the hill, I was like, shit, you know, there's definitely something following me. I just had like an overwhelming feeling of something following me, and I felt like I could hear it. The trees were moving, and they weren't like violent like they was when they ran, you know what I mean? But it was almost like I felt like something wanted me to know that they were there, yeah. And I honestly, maybe they were studying me. Who knows? You know, I mean, they're probably just as curious as we are.
Yeah.
You know, but. And I was never sure if they were real or not, you know what I mean?
Until now,
yeah, I've
right?
heard, so out 36 in Williamstown, my uncle, his family had a farm out there, and they talked about seeing them when they were kids, like his grandparents and stuff like that. And I just like, whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, how do you feel now? I mean, knowing that these things are out there.
I can't stop thinking about it. That's what Mom said. She said, "Has it consumed you?" I said, "I just want to see one again." Like,
Do you really?
That's all I want
Well,
to
you know,
do.
it's really funny because, I mean, I talk to a lot of witnesses all throughout the United States, and some of them become kind of like you, where they're just consumed
I'm
by
just
it and just,
mesmerized.
yes. And then other people are like, you know, I've seen this thing and I don't want to ever, ever, ever see one like
Well,
it
that's
again.
like once I saw it, like maybe if I hadn't seen it with the little one, I wouldn't feel the same way. But like I could tell that it genuinely cared about the little one as much as anybody should care about their kids. I don't want to say everybody cares about their kids because they don't. But
right.
I mean, you could tell. I mean, it walked up and put its hand on its head when it was standing there in the creek. I mean, it was literally like I could feel the affection from the, you know what I mean? I could feel it, and it was.
Wow.
I was shocked, you know. I mean, like I came in the house and Mom was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "I don't know. You can come out here for a minute." And like I said, my sister and my brother's ex-wife was there. And I told her, I said, "I want to tell them," you know what I mean? Because as soon as I do, they're going to be putting stuff on Facebook, and there's going to be people trying to come out here. I said, and I think they should be left alone. Like, if they're happy, I mean,
Good for you.
they were there and they looked happy, and I feel like they should be left alone.
Good for you. That's fantastic. We need more people doing what you're doing.
I just always really had a soft spot for nature. You know, I mean, like I said, I hunt and stuff, I deer hunt and fish and everything. But if I'm, sometimes I just go walking in the woods just to go walking in the woods. I love when I run into a fox. You don't hardly see red fox around
Right,
here, and
right.
I love it every time I see one. They're
So,
beautiful.
and before all the splashing happened, had you been sitting there for a while? I mean,
I
how do
was
you think?
walking.
I mean, how do you think that how do you think it was that they didn't hear you? Because typically, people don't sneak up on these things.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if maybe the little one was just making so much noise, but I like when I was sitting there watching them, I was kind of ducking behind a tree on the other side of the fence, and like I said, I was a pretty good distance away. Like I felt like I could be quiet enough. I didn't know how their hearing was,
Right.
and I really didn't know. I was more worried about them smelling me before anything because I don't know. You know,
Right,
I mean,
right.
I know animals have a lot
Better sense of smell,
you know? And I think had the little one not been making so much noise, because I mean I could hear rocks clanging together and stuff, and then when I go down there, it's picking up. I mean I'm talking about like bigger than those stepping stones. I'm talking about good sized rocks, just stacking them, you know. And there's probably a stack this tall, like that high, coming out of the water, just rock
In the
on
middle
top.
of the creek?
Yeah, like it's right in the middle of the creek. I'm sure it's still there unless someone's knocked it over, but I mean it was right in the middle of the creek. Like I said, it was at least that tall, I would say, coming out of the water. And I don't know, and the water was pretty deep at that point too. You know
Because
what I
we've
mean?
had a lot of rain.
Yeah, so it was stacking rocks for a minute. But I think maybe,
They were making so much noise they just didn't hear you.
and that's what I think. But even when I was sitting there looking, I could see the big one in the creek, and it was looking up the hillside. It looked like it was paying very close attention to make sure nothing came up on them. But kind of where I was kind of around the bend. You know, they really, like I could probably see them for like, I probably could have gone another 10 or 15 yards before they could have seen me near as good as I could see them, just because of the trees and everything. I just couldn't believe. The most overwhelming thing for me was like the amount of care I could see in its face towards the little one. You know what I mean? You could see its general concern and just overall care for its young. You know, and it was, I don't know. I just want to see one again. I told Mom, I said I won't go down there by myself again. I definitely won't go down there without a camera or something.
Yeah.
Because I mean, where I was at, I could have sat there with a camera and videotaped them for a half hour. You know,
imagine?
Yeah. I mean, it would have been something incredible.
It would have been something.
Well, that's what I say. 36 out in Williamstown. Like I've heard people talking about seeing it. Even my papa, before he died, he hunted out there. The family had a farm out there in out Cynthiana Street in Williamstown, and he came back hunting one day, and I mean he looked sick. Like he was pale, he was sick, and he said he saw one. You know, and he said he saw one and explained it. But I was, you know, I mean my mom was a kid then.
Yeah.
But he talked to us about it as we got older. You know, I mean I've heard the story, but I mean he was so spooked by it that, you know.
Well, and that happens to a lot of people. I mean, you know, imagine being out there coon hunting at night and running into something like that. You know,
Oh, you wouldn't know what to do. You know.
scary.
Well, if you had a gun, you would think to shoot it. But I think even had I had a gun, I don't think I would have shot at it. I mean, not without watching. Like, I'm glad I didn't have a gun and shoot it immediately before I got to see it. You know what I mean? Because there was literally, like, the amount of care that it had for the small one was, like, unlike any animal I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen an animal, like, it looked legitimately concerned. Like I said, when it running down the creek getting away, it seemed like it was staying in sight as a distraction. Like, it seemed like it was staying there and letting the small one go. The small one was fast, but like I said,
Like fast, like a deer fast?
like, no, it's probably not that fast, but I mean, it got up the bank in a hurry and it was gone. It was just...
Was it on all fours?
The bank, when it got up the bank it was, but until it got there it was running upright.
Okay.
But the big one was running upright the whole time I saw it. But I mean, it was running straight through the middle of the creek, so it's really hard to tell how fast it could go when it was running in water.
Away from you too.
Yeah, and it was running away from me, and I wasn't trying to chase it. I wanted to get away. Because I mean, it looked right in my direction. I don't know that it saw me, but it seemed almost like it looked right at me. And then that's when the arm went up and the bellows, and then it all just, like,
so
for a
fast.
second, it was like a whirlwind of unbelievable stuff. Like, I couldn't believe what was happening. Because it seemed like it sent a signal, you know what I mean? It seemed like they had some sort of signal set up, and the trees, I mean, I'm talking big trees, you know what I mean? out in the farm, and I mean, it was just violent. You know, the tree, like the amount of power that it would have taken to shake those trees like that, it blows my mind that something was able to do that, and it was that close to me out there.
How wide do you think from shoulder to shoulder?
I'd say at least 2 of me. I mean, it was maybe 1.5. It was probably at least that wide. Like it was big.
That's like 4 feet.
Oh yeah, it was big.
Did you see much of a neck?
It's really hard to tell with the hair. It seemed like the hair fluffed out here too a little bit, you know what I mean? Like it was,
How about its arms, like the length of its arms?
they were long and lanky like a gorilla. They looked like it probably hung down around its knees or something, you know what I mean?
Was it muscular or was it, could you tell?
It's hard to tell with the hair. But it certainly had the lanky walk that everybody describes a Bigfoot having, you know what I mean? They always talk about the arm swinging and stuff like that. That's what it looked like. I mean, it seemed very, very loose, you know what I mean? Like its arms and everything, it just seemed to be really loose when it did everything. Like when its arms was swinging, I mean, it was damn near bending all the way back at the elbow when it was, you know, just general walking.
Not like a human.
No, it wasn't like a human at all. Like it didn't move like a human at all, other than the walking upright. But aside from that, it looked like an animal. But anything with that much hair is gonna look like an animal.
Yeah.
But my stepdad, he's a hairy guy, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I either saw a Sasquatch or a long lost far. His last name's either Sasquatch or a long lost.
That's darn funny. Would you call this thing an animal, or would you call it? I mean, given the emotion that you saw.
I don't think you would want to put it in a zoo or something. Like I think it's a lot less than an animal than any animal I've ever seen at the zoo. I mean, it felt like it was like, you know, it looked like a hairy mountain man or something. I mean, that's what it reminded me of. Just a lot oversized. It looked like a mountain man to me. I mean, obviously it did have ape-like, you know what I mean, it had ape-like tendencies. But like I said, I'll say again, the big thing that completely blew my mind is just the compassion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like, looking at it, you could tell that it loved that little one. Like, it seemed to love the little one the same way I love my children. Like, it seemed to be the exact same thing to me. Just a hairier, much larger
version.
Yeah.
Did you see a waist? I mean, did it have a waistline, or was it just kind of a straight down?
Well, you can see where it went to its hips and stuff. I mean, it kind of dipped in a little bit and then came out to the hips, but with the hair, you know what I mean? I'm sure if it didn't have any hair, it would look like us, you know, just a lot larger.
How about the legs? Were they real heavy, or were they thinner? Was it lanky in terms of?
It was thick. Like I said, it looked big all the way around. But again, that could be hair too. You know what I mean? I don't know thickness, how much hair I'm even talking about. You know what I mean? It's just...
Have you gone back to look for tracks or anything?
I went down there with my buddy. Actually, I need to go get him. With my buddy. And we walked around, but it had rained and everything. There wasn't... I didn't see nothing like that. But we looked hard. But I showed him the rocks that were stacked up and everything.
And they were still there?
Yeah, he saw all that. Like I said, me and this guy's been friends since I was 3 and 5. We were neighbors, and we've been best friends our whole life.
Wow. The cool thing, though, about what happened for you, what you saw is something that is so telling about the species. I mean, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'm not in, and there are people who are trying to kill them. That's why you need to be very careful who you tell
Well,
this
that's
to.
what everybody says. Like, I told Ty, I said, I don't want to tell people because I don't want people sneaking onto the farm with rifles and everything.
They will. And
they
will. That's why you need to be
But
very careful.
I mean, if it's up to me, I would like to leave them alone. So maybe even if it takes 50 years, maybe by chance I'll see another one someday. You know, I don't want people to turn it into this big thing that I don't want it to be, and it's just because I'm private, and I always have been.
Yeah.
I withhold as much information about everything as I can. I always have. And that's what I would almost like to bring my buddy out here with me to meet you, because I mean, there's nobody on this earth that knows me better than this guy. I mean, he can vouch for how sincere, you know what I mean?
I can tell I meet you. I could tell by your voice over the phone that this was something.
It wasn't like that. Like, at no point did I ever think that they were coming to
For
get
you.
me until I heard the noise. And then I didn't even feel like that. Like, I didn't feel like something was going to come running out of the trees at me. I felt like I was being watched. You know what I mean? I heard noises. I heard it sound like heavy breathing. You know what I mean? But I never once felt like something was going to come attack me out of the woods. I don't know. Well, I mean, I was scared, no doubt, because if it did want to come get me, it could have ripped. Yeah, it could have ripped me in half, probably. It could have really hurt me if it wanted to, but it didn't. It wasn't even that kind of scared. Like, I wasn't.
You'd probably try to chase them or chase the little one. Different story.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And that's what, like, as soon as I start thinking about it, I said, well, I'm glad I didn't try to follow him. You know what I mean? Because I was very interested. I'm still interested. I mean, if I had paper and a pencil, I would have been jotting it down right there. You know. But she said, well, there's a place to file reports. Should we do it? And I said, I don't know. You think people are going to start sneaking on the farm and stuff? And mom was like, Ryan, I think you've got to file a report, because she said you may have sat and watched them longer than anybody ever has. And that's kind of how I feel. Like,
she had a very good point.
Literally, when I walked up the hill, I felt like I had seen a unicorn or something. You know what I mean? It's something that.
And you did. You had a very, very rare experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know some other people who have been in their presence that long. But that's very, very rare.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously has. Otherwise, we would have a lot more information about
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
They've done a very good job trying to stay hidden.
Is that not amazing?
Yeah. Well, that's like, when Mom's talking to me, she said, well, people always talk about not finding bones or anything. And I said, watching them, they seemed intelligent enough that they may do something with their dead like we do. I mean, who knows if they bury them or cover them, you know what I mean?
I think they do.
You would think by now somebody would have come across something, you know what I mean, that was hard, conclusive evidence. I mean, people have been looking for them for years, you know what I mean? You would think something would have been discovered. But watching the amount of just compassion you could see from one to another, like, it doesn't seem so far-fetched to me if they don't have some kind of, I don't want to call it a ritual, you know what I mean? I wouldn't call a funeral a ritual, but that's what we do. How do we not know that they're not smart enough to do their own thing like that?
I think they do.
So now that you've kind of gotten to hear him telling his story and a little bit about it, what an incredible account. And he also took a camera, so I've included images from the exact area where so that you can see what the terrain looked like and everything. And I was working on a witness sketch of him, so I've got a little something to show you there. But unfortunately, he was having heart trouble and had to go in for surgeries. And I had reached out to him a couple of times, but when someone's going through something like that at such a young age, I didn't want to harass him. But that is his story. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here. And again, please leave in the comments, the stuff that you'd like me to do more of, or that, you would like to see more of. And anyway, thank you guys, and I love you all.